Hey guys, how goes it? Dr. C is back. So, I was going through some of my old stuff in my room, and I found something pretty interesting. If you can see that. Yeah, that's me, right there. And that's from when I was about 7, and then this is one around the same time. That's me wearing the black suit. Yeah, not exactly the proudest moments of my life. I've changed a lot since then, and I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do this video about until I found those pictures just about like a couple of minutes ago. So what I'm going to talk to you guys today is about how time changes you. So I have lived in this house for the past 12 years, not including the year that I lived elsewhere for Hurricane Katrina. So this house has pretty much seen me go from this nerdy little weirdo to who I am today. Which, to be quite honest, I am still nerdy and I am still a weirdo, but I do think a lot has really changed. As a kid, I was really reserved, and I really kept to myself. I didn't want to really interact with other people because I was always afraid that people wouldn't like me. So if anyone ever tried to try to get to know me or get close to me, I would try to scare them off by growling and hissing at them, and they thought I had mental issues. But as I got a little older, actually around the time I had those two pictures taken, I met these two guys named Chris and Calvin. And believe me when I tell you, meeting those two guys really just symbolized the beginning of change in my life. You see, as a kid, I had the notion that I was too good for anybody else. I was too smart to talk to anybody else. At least anybody else my age. And honestly, for a little while I was right, because a lot of my classmates just weren't as, I don't want to be mean about it, but they just had to put more of an effort towards school than I did. And right after meeting these guys, I got into a program called Gifted and Talented, GT, and I found out that these two were in that program. And when I realized how many kids were in this program and how much smarter they were than me, I just had a huge reality check. I realized that I wasn't nearly as smart as my arrogance was letting off, and actually that made me really insecure. It actually got to the point where I was looking at everybody and I thought, oh god, this person's looking at me funny, this person looks like he doesn't like me. And the fact of the matter was that deep down inside, I was kind of scared to have friends. I was scared to have people I could trust. Then, after I met Chris and Calvin, once I got to know them a little better, I got closer to them, I started showing a lot of changes in my personality. I became more easygoing, I became a lot more loose with myself, and I developed a bit more of a sense of humor. And one of the biggest changes that came about when I met these guys was that I became way more creative. Now, I think that I really always was creative to a certain extent, but I was just really bad at expressing myself. You know, I remember growing up I always had this wild and crazy imagination, but I never knew how to project it towards other people. And what I would do was that I would use that imagination and try to become whatever it was that I was imagining. And I learned that you can't do it like that, because if you keep that up, at a certain point somebody's going to call a psychiatric ward. Then you've got people all over your house trying to tie you up in a straitjacket, and it just doesn't end well for anybody. So with the help of my friend Chris, I started developing and honing my creativity. So what did he and I start doing? We started coming up with ideas for superheroes. That was one thing about me and Chris, we were just crazy about superheroes, and we wanted to make our own universe. So we grabbed an old notebook of his, and we just started writing down the names of superheroes, the superpowers they had, and we started drawing them up. And we had this dream that when we got older, we would, team up and become these developers that would make this imaginary universe a reality. And the whole idea of it was so cool. And that was pretty much what binded Chris and me as best friends. Unfortunately, after 6th grade, Chris moved to another school and I never got to see him again. After which, I still had Calvin, and we had made one other friend now that we were in middle school named Gabriel Rodriguez. And from the three of us came another guy named Trey Berthelot. He was a good friend of mine in elementary school as well. And there were two other guys that came from another school called Haynes named Hamza and Eric. So the six of us became really good friends throughout the rest of middle school. You know, we were hanging out at the mall and just like spending time outside of school together. And with these guys, I developed an even bigger sense of humor, but I also became more sarcastic. I became more irritable because hanging out with them, I realized there are certain people that just get on my nerves. And one of my bigger changes came about when I met a girl named Lena. Lena was this really cool, popular girl, and you know, she's just that kind of person that everybody loves, everybody wants to be around. And I started getting a little interested in her. But there comes a point when you realize you don't stand a chance. So what do I start doing? First of all, I'm getting a lot more insecure about myself, of course. But I started becoming a lot more arrogant. To an extent, I always had been arrogant, but I usually tried to keep it to myself because I didn't want to get on people's nerves. You know, a lot of people saw me as this really sweet, sensitive kid that always tried to put everybody before himself. And the reality was that I was just trying really hard to get on people's good side. Because, I mean, I thought I was a pretty awesome person, but the thing that made me insecure was that I always thought that people didn't see me for who I really was. They saw me as that nerdy little weirdo. And I wanted them to see me as I saw myself, which was that awesome guy who is just good with people. Anyway, I started making myself look a lot more arrogant, and I also stepped up my stubbornness a little bit. I was always a stubborn kid, but at this point I was going to be the kid who wouldn't take no for an answer. And that went on for about a year. It went into my freshman year, which, by the way, I lost a lot of my friends after middle school because they all went to a different school than me. I moved to a different school. It was actually the school that Hamza and Eric had come from, and I knew a total of like 2 people at that school at the time, and they weren't really people that I associated myself with that much. But one of them did become my best friend for a while, Alfredo Soto. And Haynes is really where my arrogance really blew up. You know, I was the new kid, I was the one that nobody ever really knew. So I basically just wanted to come off as the guy that didn't care about what anyone thought of him. And the way that worked out my first year was that people saw me as the really weird asshole that always sang in Spanish. So it didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. Come the next year, 10th grade, I took a different approach to it. I tried my hardest to be nicer to people. You know, I tried to have more of an open mind. I tried to be more humble. And it really worked out for me because I made a lot more friends, and out of one of those friendships came something that I will never forget. But that's not really something I should bring up. Junior year. Oh boy, junior year. It was around this time that I kind of fell back into my I don't care attitude, and it kind of worked out for me the same way. It really came back to bite me in the ass. I lost a lot of good things I had going for me, and I lost a few friendships, but everything happens for a reason. Senior year, I really tried to piece back together everything that sort of fell apart during junior year, and to an extent I succeeded, but at the same time I kind of made more of a mess. But all in all, more than trying to change myself, I started to embrace who I am, who I was. And right now I'm just trying to piece up the best of both worlds. You know, I'm trying really hard to be that sweet, sensitive, creative guy I was in middle school. And at the same time, I want to have the confidence and the self-assurance that I have had for the past 4 years, but at the same time be humble and just trying really hard to be a good person all around. So far, I can't really say it's been working out too well. But, you know, life goes on, and things change all the time. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, sometimes it's neutral, but it all depends on what you make of it. So I guess you can say that's the moral of the story today. So now for today's question. What do you think has changed the most about you since you were a kid? Leave your answer in the comments below. You know the deal. Like, favorite, subscribe, share. New videos every Tuesday and Friday with cover videos going up whenever the hell I feel like it. And I will see you guys next time.